Hi there, my name is Otodojo, and I'm going to show you how to make this Lissajous Curve Table in TouchDesigner using tops. So let's get started. Now, we'll start with just making one Lissajous curve using ramps. So we're going to just get a constant and add in some parameters like res as 100, phase A, phase B, phase C, and these will remain 0. Let's add in our first ramp. Change the resolution from 1 to 1 in the height and res for the width. Now let's change the location of the black color and go into the ramp keys by clicking this pink button, change the position to 0.5, close that back, add the phase A here, and copy and paste, change this to phase B. Add a reorder. Input 2 is green, and let's leave input blue as 0. Output blue as input 1 at 0, and add the ramp 2 to the green slot. One other thing is we should select these, go to common, and change this to 32-bit float. Now if we add a null, and let's call this instance, change the color just so we know it's an instance, add a add sup, add points, convert to particles per point, render as point sprites, add a material, add a point sprite material, and now let's render this in a geometry. Enable instancing, drop the instance into the translate OP, and RNG for translate X and Y. Now let's split the screen and split this top and bottom. Let's make this a geometry viewer. Let's make this a top viewer. Let's disable backdrop tops here. And let's grab a reference. So just gonna grab this reference table. Yes, that's the one. Okay, so this is our reference. And now we're going to change the phase of ramp 1 in our constant. So to change this to 0.25, we can kind of get this square, and that's because we need to adjust some parameters on our ramps. So select both of them and change the interpolate notches to ease in, ease out. Now we get our circle. And if we want to make this more of a circle, we can add 500 points, but rather than using dots, we can use line. So let's add a line and change point B from 0, 0, 1. Put this into the material and change this to a line material. And we have this sort of cylinder, and we can now rotate this. So from our instance, add a transform, translates by pixels, -1 in X, tile repeats, and add a subtract that transform. Now add a math and multiply this by some high number like 1080. Add a null, call this rotate, and now we're going to rotate to this OP by RG. Cool. Now we have our circle, but the lines are too big, so let's divide this by some number, 20, maybe a little bit more, like 50 or 40. Yeah. Now this is our circle. And if we animate the phase, so ABS time, that's seconds, divide by 20, and press play, we'll see some artifacts here. And I'm not quite sure how to get rid of those other than reducing the size of the lines and then increasing the resolution. So if we like decrease this to 1/60, it'll reduce the artifacts. Maybe even 1/100. So let's just get this back to 0. And yeah, we can see that this is mostly reducing the artifacts, but the points don't add up to the circle, so let's increase the resolution to like 500. And now we can see our circle is pretty solid. Okay, so we have one cell complete, but now we need to add each individual cell interspaced by some units over here. And the frequency of the wave increases in one dimension across each column and also across each row. So we are going to have to code this in somehow. And the way that I chose is using a replicator comp. So I'm going to put these into a base, and rather than base 1, I'm going to call this base 0. And go in here, and we can find that this is broken, so we have to change the reference over here to the parent. Now this is okay. And how are we going to combine our textures? Well, one way is to use the layout top, which I could just show for demonstration, where, let's see. So if I add a replicator, add the master operator here, operator prefix is base, and let's make this 7 replicants. Let's move the layout over to the left and down. Then we can add a layout top, add all these in, and oops, they're not interspaced. So what we'll have to do is actually use a math top to move these over to the right. So if I change this from 2 range red to 1, 2, then I will be able to move it to the right. So I can just say me.digits, or not me.digits, parent.digits, and parent.digits plus 1. And from that, if we recreate all these operators, add them back in. We'll see all our circles, but they are not the right phase, or they're not frequency. The frequency should increase. So we'll have to change the expressions in the ramps. Let's go to the ramp, and let's say, let's make this to 0.25 for A. Now we have circles. And if we decrease the period, we can see we can get our shapes in ramp 1. So we're going to have to divide the period by 2 each time, each successive time, or by the number. So this is 1 divided by 2 by the number of the base. So 1 divided by 3, etc. Looking at this one right here. 1 divided by 4 is this, 5, etc. So if we just say divide by parent dot digits, right now it's 0. So we'll have to say parent dot digits plus 1, put this in parentheses, and recreate all of the operators, add these back into the layout. We get our first row. Granted, there are some issues with this, so we have to scale resolution. And with the layout top, this works with a certain number of operators. However, once you exceed a certain number of operators, there are some glitches. So I found to change this with a fit top, and it was more reliable. So going back into base, rather than using a layout, we're going to use a fit, but don't add that in directly because it could crash. So add fit, separate, and put that in here. Now change the resolution to, let's go back to our constants. Let's view this. Go over here, and our X resolution should be this. And the Y resolution should be the number of units that we'll have in our table. So 7 times 7, 49. Now change the translate to pixel mode. And we're just going to move this all the way up, and we see that we need to get to 24. So we want to have this texture move down each successive replicant. So we'll have 24 minus parent dot digits. Then we will put this back in here. And we will get rid of this layout after we recreate all our operators. And add a composite, add an add, and put all these back in, and we have the same result, which is perfect. This is what we wanted. So this is okay with just 7 operators, but if we want to go higher than that, we have to change the expressions that we just set. So how can we do this? Well, every time we're going over to the right, these digits are increasing from 0 to 1 to 2 to all the way to 7. So this means that we want this to change at every 7th interval, so we say modulus 7. And to get to the rows, well, we can think about this for a bit. We want this to remain the same for each row until we hit 7. And so to do that, we can use an integer formula. So math.floor of parent dot digits divided by 7. And the same here, plus 1. Then similarly, we want this to go back to 1 or 0 after every 7th replicant. So let's say parent.digits modulus 7. And I believe we want the phase in this dimension to change or divide by 2 or divide by the increment each time, since this goes from this circle to this bow knot to this triple bow knot. I don't know the actual term for those, but so we're going to say phase A divided by parent dot digits divided by 7, but before that we add a math.floor and add 1 here so it doesn't give you an error. And we get the same phase, which is good. And in ramp 2, for the period, this should increase each row, or the period should decrease each row. Frequency should increase. They're inverse relations. They're inversely related. So we're going to divide this by parent dot digits divided by 7, and then get an error because we're divided by 0. Math.floor, add 1. We get the same thing. So now if we go here and add 49 replicants, let's move this over to the left. And let's disconnect all these so we don't have multiples. Select everything and put them in. And we have more or less the right table. We have some error over here. And first let's fix the directionality. So let's go back into our master base. And we're going to multiply the green by -1. Let's recreate all the operators. Grab these, add them back in. Let's see. Oh, I see. I had to add a multiply instead. Cool. Now we have our Lissajous table. And I want some space in between here. So I'm going to go back into our base, and I'm going to say from 0 to 1.25, 0 to 1.25, recreate. Put these back in. Now we have our table. Now, let's add a render top and a camera. Change the camera to orthographic. And let's change this now to this top viewer. Change the dimensions to 1280 by 1280, so it's a square. And we can see that our texture is too big for the camera here. If we put the ortho width to 1, it gets even bigger. So what we want to do is after or before the instance, let's add a math. Change the range. So I think, yeah, we changed from 1 to 7, range 1 to 7. And then I think we should be correct. Let me see. All right, this should be higher in the green. So now 1 to 2, and then negative 0.5, 0.5, and this is actually 0.5 to, sorry, 1.5. Now it's all in our view. And we can animate this phase A. And we can add different colors. So from the rotate top, let's add a noise. Before the noise, actually, let's add a monochrome. Put this into both. Change the noise out of monochrome. Add a null and call this color. Let's place this into the geo. And this RGB. Now we have some color. And we can replace some materials, but first I want to show you how to make this cool abstract design. So you can, before the instancing, just add a limit top, go to quantize, enable ceiling, and change the value to like about 0.19. And if you change the phase now, you'll have this cool morphing like grid. So let's see. Yeah, you can change this to higher or lower values, and you can add noise in here. So now it could be like strings. Yeah. So in order to get to where we started, or that texture that we started out with, that I was showing you in the beginning, we have to change this line to some kind of 3D thing, and we have to make the whole texture 3D. So let's start with making the texture 3D, and just make sure you save your work now, just in case it crashes. So we're going to go over here and add a ramp. So this is the master operator, not add a ramp, let's replicate ramp 1. and put ramp 3 into the third reorder. And now for ramp 3, let's add phase C. And output blue is input 3. Recreate all these operators, reconnect them. Let's enable the blue, or not for instance 2, but enable translate Z. Now, we don't see any difference in our top, but rest assured this is now 3D. So if we rotate this, if we're looking at our top view, if we rotate this by 90, we see the 3D-ness. And I'm going to change from lines to boxes, but before that, let's change the resolution to 100. And yeah, now let's add a box. Change the scale to like 1 divided by 1,000, I think, and put that in the material. Then switch this out with a PBR. Or first let's do Phong. Add a light. Increase the size of the boxes, maybe 500. And yep, FPS is still okay, so let's add resolution of 200, 300, just in case your computer may crash. Okay, it can go up to 500 without any FPS loss. Can even go to 1,000 for me, I think. Yep. Now let's you can change some stuff on the Phong. Let's decrease this number a bit. Make more fat boxes. And let's change the material now to PBR. I can change the metallic, the roughness, reduce the roughness. And we can move our light closer to the object. Then we can modulate the color through the Z dimension. And we can either move our lights according to the sketch. So this is going from plus minus 0.5. So math.sine, apps time, that's seconds, divided by 2. Divide by 2. And do the same for the x dimension. Change this to 3. And now we have our texture. Cool. Well, I hope you enjoy this tutorial. And if you want to download the file, I'll have it for free for my Patreon subscribers. And yep, hope you have a good day. And thank you to the subscribers that have already signed up for my Patreon. Okay, take care.